can't express to you how wonderful it is to be here with all of you. I can't also believe that the Speaker of the House called a vote without consulting with me first, but he did. And so I have very little time here, and I'm sorry about that. But I'm grateful to you, Sarah Stern. I'm grateful to you, Edmund Black, and everybody that's with you here. These are heroes to me. I mean, I know probably a third of the people in the audience here. It's kind of wonderful. But I just say to you that I believe that EMET is just the kind of, they personify the kind of thing I think is the ideal perspective for Israel. And I think that we celebrate today what is sort of, could be called the Magna Carta of Zionism. And so it's a very, very important time for us, and I want to express my own identification with all of that in the deepest and sincerest way. In 1897, when Theodore Herzl acted upon his dream of creating a unified movement to reestablish a Jewish nation in their own homeland, I think it would be safe to say that he could not have dreamed of a day like this. Can you imagine that? Now, it's an incredible irony, Sarah. I just returned last night from Israel. Wow. And, you know, I could say to you a lot of things. I mean, I had my children with me here a few years back, and I went to a couple of places that we went to. It's always touching to have that memory that they've been there. My son's name is Joshua. And so that gives you some sense of how we identify. And I pray that little boy grows up to love Israel more than his daddy does. And if he does, that would be a pretty good accomplishment. But let me just say to you something that just really moved my heart when I was there. There's always something. But I was going up the street in Jerusalem here just a few days ago. And it was a beautiful, balmy evening, you know, Middle Eastern October evening. And I heard beautiful singing. And up the street walks this group of schoolgirls, Israeli schoolgirls, probably 30 of them, holding hands, singing the songs of Zion. And that was in the backdrop, obviously, of an interview that I had just given about 100,000 rockets and missiles being aimed at the state of Israel. That was aimed right at these little girls. And Iran that was seeking nuclear weapons with which to bring death to Israel. And yet they were singing the song of Zion. How inspiring is that? And it just made me realize that God still has his hand on Israel. And so I would just say to you, wishing that I had more time with you, that this is not the time to be discouraged with all of the challenges in front of us. You know, this president, even though he may not speak diplomat, was one that stood and prayed in front of the Western Wall. And that same Western Wall was one that the previous president declared was going to declare occupied territory. So there is a difference. There is hope. And so I just remind all of you in the ways from my heart to remember that that flaming cloud still goes before Israel. America still walks beside Israel. And the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob still watches over Israel. And so we celebrate today the Balfour language, and we're so grateful that we have the chance to do that. And I wish you all shalom. And as I always close my little speeches about Israel, I pray to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob that he will see his light shine down upon the streets of Jerusalem forever. Amen. So thank you all very much. And thank you. And I'm sorry we had to.
Now just this second, we just got done with votes. So I'm glad I beat my colleague. Oh, there's Mr. Lambert from Colorado. You will get your own intro. And what a great fighter he is for Israel. But thank you so much. Thank you to all the members of EMET for bringing us together to celebrate the 100th anniversary of such a landmark event. And I'm particularly thankful for all that you have done, Sarah. Thank you for building EMET and growing it into such a strong and reputable organization in such a short time. You're right, we started the way there. The work that EMET has done in support of a strong U.S.-Israel alliance has been invaluable to all of us in Congress. And there's Brian Mast. All right. And I'm proud to have worked together with you on some of those critical issues. I was honored to be named as a Speaker of Truth. I like that. At your very first Rays of Light in the Darkness dinner in 2007. And since then, I've continued to fight for a strong U.S.-Israel alliance. And it is more important today than ever. And that is why we're here today to celebrate such a momentous document, the Balfour Declaration. I want to give a shout out to my great friend, Eitan Lahore. Eitan, wave. Okay, thank you. 100 years ago, as we know, the Balfour Declaration opened the door for something that was once only a dream. A nation state for the Jewish people in their historical, cultural, and biblical homeland. 70 years ago, that dream became a reality. And in just a short period of time, the Jewish people have taken that opportunity and made such tremendous progress, turning Israel into a flourishing and vibrant democracy and a real world leader. Yet all of that success and all of that progress is being threatened by those who wish to see Israel cease to be the home of the Jewish people, or worse, those who wish to wipe Israel off the map. We've seen this play out at the United Nations through the years, in bodies like UNESCO, let's give us Human Rights Council, and even the Security Council. There is a concerted effort by the Palestinians and their supporters to demonize, delegitimize, and isolate Israel. UNESCO is attempting to rewrite history, constantly trying to deny Jewish cultural and religious ties to Jerusalem. The United States has already cut off all contributions to UNESCO after it decided to admit the non-existent state of Palestine to its membership, but we continue to remain engaged. Thanks, Obama. Sending mixed signals. Now the Trump administration has announced that the U.S. plans to withdraw from UNESCO at the end of the year, citing anti-Israel bias and overtly political nature of this discredited body. Now, I support this decision. I think it sends a strong message to the U.S., to the UN, and other bodies like the Human Rights Council. We all know about the permanent agenda item number 7 and the UN Human Rights Council, and how that body has turned its annual anti-bash Israel Day into a celebration. Its member states focus all of their attention only on Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, the only place in the region where all Muslims are afforded every opportunity to take advantage of the fundamental human rights. Is that not amazing? The world's worst human rights abusers come together at the Human Rights Council, and in the most absurd show of hypocrisy, single Israel out with false claims of human rights abuses. It is unbelievable. And while these claims are ridiculous and an overall anti-Israel bias at the UN is prevalent, it is a very real threat to the legitimacy of Israel and its future. That's why I have worked alongside my congressional colleagues to address this damaging attitude at the UN, pushing for much-needed reform, urging administrations from both parties to use our money as leverage and withdraw from that body if we don't see those reforms. And we've seen Ambassador Haley, let's give a shout out, taking very strong stances and actions at the UN. She's done a fantastic job. I anticipate her continuing to take a hard approach at the UN and make it clear in no uncertain terms that the United States will no longer allow the status quo to continue. Those attacking Israel will no longer be tolerated, and if it continues, the UN bodies will lose the U.S. contributions they desperately need. They like our money, but they wanted no strings attached. Those days are over. Congress will support these efforts. I've introduced a bill that would condition our continued engagement with certain UN bodies on real, verifiable reforms. Congress has always been supportive of Israel and the U.S.-Israel alliance, and in making sure that Israel can defend itself from all threats. And Sarah, More members have come, so I will leave you with the rest of my lofty speech and just say thank you very much for existing, EMET. We appreciate all the work that you have done.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you for the great work you do. And I don't know if Ileana's still in the room, but Ileana, you are going to be missed. I know you'll do great things after Congress, but we will truly miss you, and you've done so much. Well, it's great to be here with my colleagues and other friends commemorating the 100-year anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. And this marked the start of the important international recognition that the State of Israel is the Jewish national homeland. However, as we know, Israel is and will remain the eternal homeland of the Jewish people with or without international recognition, because Israel, with Jerusalem as its capital, was given to the Jewish people by God thousands of years ago. And it's important to celebrate this meaningful centennial to recognize the power of what Lord Balfour did to help bring about the biblical truth of Israel to present-day reality. Britain's endorsement of a Jewish homeland also demonstrated the need for strong democracies in the world to stand up with the Jewish people who had been persecuted for thousands of years, and the prospect for them to have a homeland to be safe from outside threats. Also, it is important for democracies to stand up for democracies. As Sarah rightly states, Israel is the eastern outpost of the Western democracy that has provided women and minorities with equal opportunities for success based on hard work and merit, not on color or creed. Israel embodies Western values that bring peace to a region that is unfortunately riddled with war and tyranny. In the middle of a region that brings devastating news to our television sets and newspapers almost every day, Israel is a beacon of hope. An example that speaks volumes to Israel's character is the current fact that they are treating Syrian refugees in their hospitals. Ronald Reagan famously stated that freedom is never more than one generation from extinction. That is why today we celebrate individuals like Lord Balfour, who contributed to the Jewish people's ability to live free in their ancestral homeland. We celebrate Lord Balfour and declare to you that we should also protect Israel's freedom today. As a co-chair of the Republican Israel Caucus and the Israel Allies Caucus here in the U.S. House, I am proud to be a supporter of Israel. I am fighting in Congress to ensure that America continues to support our ally and friend Israel. I've introduced a piece of legislation I hope we can all support, if you're not already, the Taylor Force Act. My good friend Lee Zeldin as an original co-sponsor, and I think we have 140 co-sponsors in the House now. Sorry. We're here to celebrate the 100-year commemoration. I'm glad to be part of this special occasion. Thank you, Sarah.
I love EMET because it is all about truth, and the reality is the reason that I'm so happy about the Jewish state today is the truth is day after day, month after month, year after year, we have this world body that wants to go out there and attack the nation of Israel. They want to go out there and shop the UN for the answers that they seek with one hand, and with the other hand go out there and say that it's okay for these acts of terrorism that go on against the Jewish state year after year after year. And that is the truth. That is what we actually face each and every single day. And that's why I couldn't be more grateful for the fact that we get to celebrate each and every day this Jewish homeland that guarantees what happened before will never happen again. And I couldn't be more proud than to be able to say that and to celebrate that. It's something that we all need to take in when we have the moment, that we get to say the atrocities that have happened before will never happen again, and take it on as a mission for the future, to ensure that 100 years from now we are celebrating the 200th anniversary of the Balfour Declaration. So thank you for the opportunity to speak for just a moment.
Great to be here. I have a story from the beginning of time. I'm not sure if it's true, but I think it rings true. Is when God was creating the world, He was very happy with his chosen people, the Jewish people. He was raving about the land of Israel, how great it was going to be. And the angel Gabriel said, Lord, aren't you being a little kind to the Jewish people? And the Lord said, well, wait till you see the neighbors I give them. And I think that if you look at where we are with the modern state of Israel, you have this one shining light, not only of freedom and democracy, but of economic success, ingenuity, really lighting the way in a very dark region, but it is a very tough part of the world. And I think the Balfour Declaration gives us an opportunity to reflect on the history of the modern Jewish state and to do so properly without prejudice to the state of Israel. If you remember the UN resolution that passed at the end of December of last year, they basically were saying the Western Wall is occupied territory, all these things that were very harmful, but they were untrue for people who understand the history of the modern state. And when the Balfour Declaration was issued, the original plan for the Jewish state was not only Israel from the Mediterranean Sea to the Jordan River, it included a lot of what is Jordan now. It was a massive Jewish homeland in Palestine. That was the original idea. Now, I know there was politicking that went on, but to say that some of these places are occupied is historically false. At best, some of the territories are disputed, but there was never a Palestinian state in any of these places. Arabs rejected having a state and went to war against Israel. So we've got to start making sure that the people in the Congress are articulating this in a way that makes sense to the people in Israel and that shows that basically this Jewish state was envisioned to be a very big and bold project. So I think we're starting to realize that more in the Congress. The idea that somehow this is occupied territory is not as popular to say as it used to be, but we got a lot of problems at the United Nations, we got a lot of problems in Europe, and we got to make sure we're standing by our friend, the only democracy in the Middle East and the only true ally we have through thick and thin in the Middle East, the state of Israel. God bless you guys. Thank you so much. On my National Security Subcommittee, we've done some stuff with EMET about prosecuting Palestinian terrorists who murder Americans in Israel. On November 8th, I'm going to be chairing a hearing about relocating our embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
To join my colleagues on this interesting anniversary, and to join EMET, which does such great work. You know, some people have asked, why celebrate the Balfour Amendment signing? Some people trying to, postulate that this is outrageous and trying to feather their political caps by protesting. We've seen some political leaders in Western countries trying to make hay out of this. You know, the wonder of the Balfour Agreement is not so much what was in it, it's how that it even occurred at all. And when you think about all of the things that added up, it really defies explanation. From those who happen to be in specific offices at the specific moment of time, to the pushback to Winston Churchill, who was kind of ambivalent on the issue, but now ends up as the colonial secretary and becomes convinced, and in that narrow window of time, he forces the issue when it's reaffirmed in the early 1920s. And then you see other nations that came on board because of the leadership that was there. All of that can be explained away as circumstance, but I believe that it was clearly a miracle from the hand of God. Why would we not celebrate the Balfour Amendment? Should we rather celebrate things that promote tyranny, that promote leaders that export terrorism, that promote ideas that curb freedom, that promote ideas that say that if you're a woman, you can't even drive a car? If you don't believe a certain faith, you can't even coexist, you can't even do anything, and yet we want to call out the Balfour Amendment as somehow that it was not promoting a way for a free people to form a free government, promoting human rights, religious freedom, and economic prosperity, and then watching the result of that, seeing the Jewish people turn a literal desert into an oasis of life and liberty. That's worth celebrating, is it not? No people, after suffering so much, yet maintaining their identity and their language, their religion, and their heritage, was more deserving of all the nations coming together and declaring that they have a right to exist. And I will stand for that right as long as I have breath. Thank you for that.
Ladies and gentlemen, I came here tonight to celebrate, the 100th year, but I didn't come here with no plans to speak, but I was asked to do it. I said, I'll do it. If I don't have a planned, canned speech, so we'll just speak from the heart. My earliest remembrance of talking about Israel was at my dinner table at breakfast. My dad would do devotions every morning. And I remember him teaching me that those who bless Israel will be blessed. And my dad taught that. I remember as a little kid, I never forgot that. Then I went to Israel at the age of 15 with 15 other high school friends to Israel. And of course, Israel has a lot of significance for my faith. But what was the most significant emotional event for me was traveling or going to the Holocaust Memorial and going through that tour. And as a 15-year-old, you don't think about serious thoughts a whole lot. I was a dirt bike kid, and there was a lot of serious thoughts going on in my brain. But going to that Holocaust Memorial, it hit me in the heart hard. 6 million Jews murdered, the impact on families, and as a 15-year-old, it really tugged at my heart. And then we went to the Knesset that very day, and I don't remember who got on our bus, but some Israeli got on our bus and says, "We are the nation of Israel today, so what happened in the 1940s will never happen again. Never again and never forget." And that was seared into my heart. As a 15-year-old, I've never forgotten it. Then as a colonel, I was blessed to be able to help stand up long-range missile defenses with Israel to protect Israel against the long-range missiles from Iran. And what an honor to work with the Israeli Defense Forces to do that. And I got to go back this summer to look at that. It was great to see the continued improvements that we're making in that missile defense. And of course, I got to go this summer to visit. It was a tremendous blessing. Tremendous blessing to meet the Prime Minister, to go to the border areas, and so forth. But I just want you to know that when I think of the 100-year anniversary of the Balfour Declaration, I think about the almost 2 millennium of the persecution that was done, the pogroms, the absolute need for a homeland for the Jews to go back to their nation, because there needs to be a safe haven for all over the world where Jews may be, that's where they can go to have protection. And we must stand shoulder to shoulder with our friends, the Israelis. To say that the previous administration said they wanted light between us, that was such a wrong answer. I'm glad that we have an administration today that's focused on being a strong ally, shoulder to shoulder, no light between us and Israel. That's the way it should be. So I want you to know today that the folks that spoke before me, I'm in total sync with them. We need to pass the Taylor Force Act. We shouldn't be subsidizing the Palestinian Authority if they're putting in $30,000 and $40,000 to terrorists who've killed innocent people. That's a terrible spending of American taxpayer money. We need to support the anti-BDS legislation. It's wrong. And we need to move our embassy to Jerusalem. Absolutely. I'm one of many members that are committed to a strong friendship with our Israeli friends. And I will tell you, it's not just a one-way thing. I know this as a military member that, yes, the Israelis benefit from our partnership, but so do we. A lot of our weapon systems, we may sell to the Israelis, so they improve upon it, they give it back to us. And it's an iterative process, and we have both benefited, not just militarily, in our intelligence arenas. I was an intelligence officer as well, so I'm speaking from experience. And economically, we both benefit. So it's such a pleasure to be a voice for that, and I will continue to do so. And thanks for the opportunity to say thanks to our Israeli friends. Thanks.
Yes, it's, Balfour was a big deal. 100 years ago, 1917, and we can't say that all the lines that the British drew back 100 years ago were all that wisely drawn. But to adopt a statement that there needed to be a country for the Jewish people to return to, a bit of a prophecy, and yet it was exactly right. And certainly a statement to be celebrated 100 years later. And of course, it was after World War II. God does work in mysterious ways. But a horrible loss of life through the Holocaust. But then the children of Israel came home. Ezekiel 34:13 says, I will bring them from the nations and gather them from the countries, and I will bring them into their own land. I will pasture them on the mountains of Israel, in the ravines, and in all the settlements in the land. And 3 chapters later, thus says the Lord God, surely I will take the children of Israel from among the nations, wherever they've gone, and will gather them from every side and bring them into their own land. There's never been a country that disappeared, for 1,000 years, 2,000 years, and came back. The fact that Israel is back, and not only back, but doing extremely well, being extremely productive, is just evidence of there must be a God, and it must be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, because this can't happen. This is miraculous, and especially for somebody to just call it exactly. And one of the things, though, that has troubled me in recent days, I know in 2 Samuel, David asked of the Lord, okay, now I'm king, Abner's come and joined me, we've got all of Israel behind me now, Saul is gone, he paid him proper respects. Okay, Lord, where should I go? And the Lord says, go to Hebron. And he did. And he ruled as king over Israel for 7 years and 6 months. And Hebron. So I'm still waiting for somebody to explain to me how that's not Israeli land with a prior right of claim to Hebron and to where Abraham is buried and Sarah. Anyway. So there's still some mysteries still yet to be solved, but the fact that you have a nation returned that was completely gone, and the people that were indigenous to that land as the only existing indigenous people with a prior right of claim to that land, they're there, they're in their original homeland, and I happen to think that the best chance for the United States to be still in existence at the end of time is to be the best friend Israel could have. My oath is to the United States, its Constitution, just like I was only in the Army 4 years, and we were never in combat. I have great respect for those.
You made it better, though.
But, well, thank you, Don, General. But that devotion to America is what compels me to say we need to be the best friend Israel could have, and then we will be blessed, because we will be a blessing to Israel. Thank you for the blessing that you are.
Ladies and gentlemen, so honored to be with you, and I was just pointing out to our friends from Israel out front that I grew up in the holy city of Charleston. There's some confusion. There are two holy cities, and so growing up in Charleston, it was so incredible to recognize that at the time of the American Revolution, the largest Jewish population in the New World was in Charleston, South Carolina. The first provincial constitution to recognize Judaism as a religion was the province of South Carolina. The first Jewish elected official in the New World was for the assembly of the province of South Carolina. Sadly, the first Jewish American patriot who was killed in the American Revolution promoting our freedom was in Charleston, South Carolina. That's where I grew up. So it was just a natural for me to be appreciative of the state of Israel. I'm so grateful for its success. My wife and I have had wonderful visits there. In fact, when she meets Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, she says, one day I want you to be as good as him. And my visits to Israel have brought to mind, as a member of the Armed Services Committee with 4 sons who have served in the military. My oldest son served in Iraq, my second son, a doctor in Iraq, my third son served in Bright Star in Egypt, my youngest son served in Afghanistan as an engineer. And so, to my wife Roxanne, and then Etan said, "You served?" Yes, I did, but I was a National Guard JAG. So I'm really proud of my son's service overseas. But on my visits to Israel, it is always a reminder how narrow the country is, how at risk it is, and I am always so proud of the resolve of the people of Israel. Visiting Sderot, to visit with a mother who explained the horror of being in a park as the consequence of Hamas rockets were being fired. And then we should always recognize the danger of Hezbollah. But in any way, I'm just so grateful to be serving, and however I can be helpful. And then I'm also grateful my oldest son, Alan, is a true friend of Israel as the Attorney General of South Carolina. And so, there was a question before the General Assembly of South Carolina about whether the state of South Carolina could buy Israel bonds. You'll be happy to know that the Attorney General met with the Consul General from Atlanta and explained it to the General Assembly that it is legal, should be done, and has been done. So, again, thank you for being here. And then Etan is a superstar. He was in South Carolina last week with the ambassador from the European Union to the United States. It was a very positive experience. And again, thank you for being here today. What a difference you make on behalf of the relationship of the United States and Israel and the protection of the people of Israel. God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you.
I remember the talk, and I was actually in the House at that time, and I've been in the Senate for 23 years, so that's been a while. But nonetheless...
How about the speech you gave in the Senate years ago, too?
Oh, that's right.
We all remember that, too.
Well, you know, it's fun to do that, and to talk about the real history of the land and why it's there. Scripturally speaking, it goes all the way back. And that speech lasts an hour and 15 minutes. I'm prepared to give it again now. So, let me just share with you guys a great experience I just had. I just came back from Israel, and we were with Netanyahu. We've become such close friends that I remember back when he gave the joint, you remember that, Joe, that gave the joint speech, the joint session. And after that, at that time, we had 17 Republicans wanting to get the nomination. And I said, my choice is to get him to change his registration and come over and be President of the United States. Anyway, you know, he's one that doesn't smile a whole lot because he hasn't really had a lot to smile about. He's had all the hardships and the problems he had during the last 8 years of the last administration. But anyway, this was not long after the speech that Trump made on the Iran deal. You remember the Iran deal that was put together by John Kerry, and it was just a giveaway. And so, right on the heels of that, he was still celebrating over there. So he's very excited and very uplifted. We're working right now. We're doing the Defense Authorization Bill, and you're fully aware of what is in there, and working on the Iron Dome and what opportunities that they have had. One of the things I find really interesting about Israel, they always have the the real pretty girls, they're always majors or colonels, operating their defensive operation. And so it's always fun to go over and watch them work. And you know, in all reality, I think the reason is they recognize that they have some talents that the boys don't have. And it works very well. So we had a chance to watch them in action. And you have to keep in mind, they're just a matter of a few short miles away from people who hate them and want to pull them off the face of this earth. And so it's a different world over there. But now Yahoo realizes they've got a new friend in the United States. And it happens to be our president. So anyway, I'm glad to be here to celebrate with you, and call on me when you want the long speech.